Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can all hear me and I'm set up correctly. So I'm going to start the presentation for today, our webinar. I'll just set myself up, make sure we're ready. We've hit 11 o'clock, so I will start now. So firstly, I'll introduce myself. I'm Sarah Hudson. I'm a business partner for Clover HR. And here in front of you, you have the team, or certainly some of the team at Clover HR. And we are here to support on all HR matters. We're doing a series of webinars. If you're on our mailing list, you'll have received details on some others that we're holding, and I'll go through some details on those at the end of this webinar as well. We will ask for some feedback at the end. There's a quick survey that will come up at the end of the slides. We'd be really grateful if you could take some time to complete that. Just a point on question and answers. If you do have any questions, if you want to drop them in an email to me or send a message, and I will come back to anyone to answer some of those questions, or if you think of something later, then feel free to send us an email as well. Again, my contact details will be on at the end of the webinar. So just to start with, I'll go through what we're going to be discussing today. So we're looking at inclusion. So the meaning of inclusion, why it's important to be inclusive, 5 steps to inclusion. These are kind of top tips for you, and how Clover HR can help you develop your inclusion. Right. So to start with, what we'll be exploring today is inclusion. So inclusion, what does it mean? It's helpful to define it, and it is diversity, recognizing difference, and that's acknowledging the benefit of having a range of perspectives in decision making, and the workforce being representative of the organization's customers and clients. And inclusion is valuing difference. So where people's differences are valued and used to enable everyone to thrive at work. An inclusive working environment is one in which everybody feels that they belong without having to conform, and that their contribution matters and they're able to perform to their full potential, regardless of their background, identity, or circumstances. This is very relevant today with the Black Lives Matter movement, which has been publicised, and people are responding to this, and it's making them consider their experiences, particularly in the workplace. Studies have shown that we still have a way to go, though, with inclusion and diversity. A recent CIPD study found that inequality is still widespread in the workplace. And a Green Park report, which is a leadership recruitment and consultancy service, in 2009 found that only 52% of FTSE 100 organisations have a non-white board member or executive committee member. So as I say, we've still got a way to go on this. And anything we can do to help improve inclusion and diversity goes a long way. So I've got here a quote from the CIPD. An inclusive workplace enables a diverse range of people to work together effectively. Businesses need to acknowledge that people have varying personal needs, values, and beliefs. Each team of people is unique. So we're going to look now at the benefits of inclusion, so what this will do for your business. So firstly, we have attracting and retaining talent. People want to work with employers who have good employment practices, and they want to feel valued at work. Secondly, market competitiveness. A recent McKinsey report demonstrated that if you excel in gender and ethnic diversity, you have a 35% chance to outperform competitors. And looking at corporate reputation. Businesses attract and retain customers and employees by reflecting prevailing society views. All of these 3 things have an effect on your bottom line. And on the flip side of that, looking at the impact of not encouraging inclusion. So you have impact on the individuals, on their well-being, performance at work, and intention to stay. And all of these things lead to a loss of output and potentially a cost of recruitment. These are all negative factors. Also, it has an adverse effect on employee opportunity. Failure to recognise skill means you're not promoting the most talented, and that has an impact on how your business performs. And then finally, looking at discrimination. So there's a financial and reputational cost in terms of this as well. So we're looking at legal costs, defending a discrimination claim in tribunal. We're looking at compensation, settlement costs to avoid going to tribunal. So these are quite large costs that we'd be looking at if we are not being inclusive. So what we're going to look at today is these 5 steps to inclusion, and we'll look at each one in turn and how your organisation can do this. So firstly, we'll examine the organisation culture, climate and values, reviewing policies and procedures regularly, senior management commitment, developing line manager capability, and involving all employees. So, looking at developing an open culture and maintaining an open culture. And we have here some 4 top tips. So firstly, making it clear that everyone has a personal responsibility to uphold standards. Secondly, focusing on fairness, inclusion and transparency. Thirdly, ensure that merit, competence and potential are the basis for all decisions in recruitment and development. And the 4th point, to be alert to unconscious bias. We come on to policies and practices. So review policies regularly to ensure that they promote inclusion. And here we're talking about even small things like ensuring gender neutral language. So using them and they, not referring to she, he. Looking at processes. So for example, to include detail in an induction, so all new employees know about the organisation's values towards inclusion right from the start. And thirdly, building diversity and inclusion concepts and practices into training that's given. So I'm talking here about staff training, manager training, and team building programs that increase awareness of the need to handle different views, perceptions, and ideas in a positive way. Senior management commitment is really vital in this whole process of embedding inclusion. A top-down approach is really needed to set the tone, remembering that as a senior manager, you are a role model. Also acting on the data. So data shows the benefits of inclusion, but often isn't acted upon despite these benefits. If you excel in gender and ethnic diversity, you'll have a 35% chance to outperform your competitors. So this should really be made a priority. And along with setting the tone and a top-down approach, making sure that senior managers are acting as leaders. Developing the line managers' capabilities as well is also very important. So the next step down from the senior managers. These managers are your representatives. You need to set the expectations for them, provide them with the support, and consider awareness raising programs within the business. When we're talking about support, particularly look at training them. People might not naturally understand the concept of inclusion if they've never suffered by being excluded. So don't just assume that people do understand. And then involve all employees. Ensure that there is opportunity for feedback. So actively search for feedback and ideas and encourage it to be given as part of the business's culture. So you're looking at welcoming feedback from people, even if it's negative, so that you can look at whether you do need to change. And particularly around inclusion, ensure that different groups are able to access all opportunities to provide feedback. So for example, does everybody have access to a computer if you're asking for an employee survey to be done? If not, can you arrange for access, or can something be printed for them? Have good communication channels based on open dialogue and active listening. And use employee surveys to evaluate activities or find out if policies are working for everyone, and provide a platform for improvement. So I'm just going to recap again over our 5 steps to inclusion. So firstly, look at your organisation culture, climate and values. Review your policies and procedures regularly. Ensure that you have senior management commitment. Develop your line manager capability, and ensure that you're involving all employees on this journey. So I'd ask you, consider whether your business has captured all of these points, and review where you are as an inclusive business. Now I have an extra slide in here from when we first ran this webinar. So we did this webinar a couple of months ago, and we were approached by Enable, who are a supported employment service in Wolverhampton. And they've asked us to consider including some detail regarding people with hidden disabilities and inclusion of these people. So the 5 steps to inclusion that we've discussed apply here, but I've just added some detail on how specifically your organisation can encourage people with disabilities, and particularly hidden disabilities, which comprise 80% of disabled people, to apply for a role within your organisation. So firstly, looking at the application process. Make the content of your job adverts accessible by using plain English and avoiding jargon. Be precise and use at least font size 12. Be clear about essential requirements of the role so people can make their own decisions on whether to apply. Review where you advertise your role. Think about using specialist disability recruitment portals and media to reach out to the disabled community and letting them know that you're positive about disability. Being open about your approach to disability will encourage applicants to disclose any disabilities at all points along the recruitment journey. Be genuinely open and engaging to all employees about any adjustments needed to do the role. You might be surprised at the level of honesty and commitment you get back. Consider the level of flexibility in receiving information from an applicant as part of the application process. So what information are you trying to get? And can you get it in an alternative way? So for example, if you accept online applications only, consider accepting paper applications as well. Or could people send a video application rather than a written application? So it's thinking outside the box and looking at how we can make it easier for everybody to make applications. Then moving on to the interview process. So ensure that the interview takes place in an accessible location, and this will minimise the request for reasonable adjustments. If you're using an assessment centre, consider developing a policy that proactively addresses the reasonable adjustments in terms of request. So for example, would you offer additional time, etc. If the role requires a medical questionnaire or health check, be open and transparent about the reasons for this and the assessment criteria for it. So it's being honest with people, being open and actively encouraging them to make applications. So I want to discuss now just how Clover HR can help you. So Clover HR has dedicated professionals to help in each area. We can coach to support senior managers in understanding the culture that they want to achieve in their organisation. We can review policies to ensure these promote inclusion. We can train. We can create bespoke courses to upskill your management. For example, I had a recent client who requested training to explore unconscious bias because they had concerns that there might be unconscious bias happening within their recruitment process. So they were proactive in asking for this. We can also come in and have a look for you and see if there's any training that we believe would be beneficial to you as a business. And we can conduct employee surveys to understand how your employees are feeling about the organisation. And this can often give you a really good insight into what is happening that you might not have had the opportunity to look at before. So these are some of the ways that we can help. Obviously, there are many other things in the sphere of HR, and we usually are able to help in all of those. So please do feel free to follow the links at the end of this webinar, or to look at our website, which is cloverhr.co.uk. Also, my business card will come up in a few slides time. So if you want to take a note of my details, feel free to contact me or any other member of the Clover team. And then just quickly for you, some upcoming webinars. So these are the ones that we've got scheduled in at the moment, both with Kerry Cooper. So firstly, the benefits of team coaching, and then the power of psychometric assessments and coaching to drive performance. We also have other webinars which are available in our archives. So do take a look at those by just logging onto the website. Thank you for joining me today for this webinar. I hope you found it useful, and I'm sure I shall be running some more webinars shortly, and certainly my colleagues, as I've discussed, will be. So I hope we'll see you soon. And these are some of my details. If you want to just take a note of these, I'll leave those up for a few moments. So thank you everyone for attending.